In this short video, I'd like to talk a little bit about the music that came out of Venice around 1600 and the famous composer Giovanni Gabrieli. Venice was an important city in the 16th century. It was, next to Rome, the most important city in Italy. In the 15th century, it reached this summit of power and wealth. The conditions were great in that it was the chief port for European trade and was politically independent from its neighbors. Even though its position was reduced in the 16th century because of wars, its artistic community continued to flourish. The heart and center of Venetian musical culture was the great St. Mark's Cathedral. I'm going to show you some pictures of that in a second, but before I do, here's modern day Venice. Here's another action shot. As I said, the heart and center of Venetian musical culture was the great St. Mark's Cathedral. Most of the civic ceremonies took place in this church and in the large open square which faced it. Therefore, most Venetian music was conceived of as manifestation of both church and state and was designed to be heard on both solemn and festive occasions. Because Venetian life didn't have the same ascetic, conservative quality that was characteristic of the music that came out of Rome, Venice took its religion more easily. And also because of its wide commercial interests and its long-standing trade with the East, its atmosphere was more cosmopolitan and more flamboyant. Here's a few images that I took, once again displaying my bad photography. The bell tower. St. Mark's Basilica was the center, and it's, as you saw, the architecture is extravagant. It contains many mosaics, and the distinctive feature about St. Mark's are the two widely separated choir lofts. Here's a picture of the inside where you can kind of get an idea of the wide separation between the lofts. And this is way too blurry to be able to see the mosaics, but the ceiling is just covered with mosaics. Actually, the floors are too. Giovanni Gabrieli and his uncle, Andrea Gabrieli, were the leading Venetian composers around 1600. So the importance of Giovanni Gabrieli is that he used the unusual layout of the San Marco church with its two choir lofts facing each other to create these amazing spatial effects. Most of his pieces were written so that a choir or an instrumental group would be heard on one side, followed by a response from the musicians on the other side. And because Venice was wealthy, they had money to pay for the inclusion of musical instruments. So it wasn't just a cappella singing. Here's a picture of a score from a piece by Gabrieli that shows that there are two choirs, a double choir. The first four lines of this image show you the choir one, and resting below it shows you the second choir, and they're going to come in the last measure. And this is, I'm sure this is blurry, but it shows how the second choir takes over, and then the first choir comes back in. This created what's called antiphony. Antiphony is when you get this kind of bouncing back and forth, this responsive alternation of groups, especially of singers. The big deal about Giovanni Gabrieli is that he was very careful about what instruments would play in what groups, and he specified precise directions for not only the instrumentation but also dynamics. Once again, I don't want to violate copyright law by placing music inside this presentation, but I will attach a video or a link to a video of a piece by Gabrieli. This use of antiphony was very influential in the Baroque period. In these works, a new resource of composing was explored, and that was the contrast and opposition of sonorities. This contrast becomes a basic factor in the Baroque period. A good example would be the concerto, as we will look at a little bit later.